is Feline, and today's practice will focus on healing every aspect of your body through healing impurities with Ashtanga. Your physical body will be supported by strengthening and stretching all your muscle groups, with a bit more energy being directed towards the lower back and gluteus muscles. Please come down to your mat to sit in easy pose, or whatever seated pose is most comfortable for your body. Think about your intention for today's practice. While our theme is healing impurities, your intention is your own. It can be something as simple as balance, or it can be something deeper. Let's start our practice by closing your eyes, drawing into your senses and the awareness of your breath. You'll want your shoulders back, rolled back. You'll want your shoulders directly over your hips, lower back supported. Pretend like the crown of your head is attached to a string in the ceiling and that you're sitting tall. Place the back of your hands on your knees, thumbs and forefingers touching. Connect to your breath, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the nose with your throat constricted. This is Ujjayi breathing. Lower your gaze and come into the present moment. Stay here for a minute and focus on your breathing. We're going to begin our warm-up with seated torso circles. Place your hands on your knees. Keep your sits bones firmly planted in your mat. Slowly begin to rotate your torso in a nice big circle, keeping your sits bones grounded, and use your hands as an anchor as you circle around clockwise 10 times, and then we're going to take the movement counterclockwise 10 times. Oh, excuse me. We're going to go counterclockwise. We're going to come back to neutral. The next pose we're going to do is a seated ear to shoulder pose. So we're going to, again, make sure our shoulders are rolled back. We're sitting up tall. And we're going to gently drop the right ear towards the shoulder. We're going to take a couple of breaths here. Give ourselves a nice stretch on the other side of the neck. We're going to bring the head back to neutral. And we're going to drop the left ear towards the left shoulder. We'll take 3 or 4 rounds of nice deep breaths. Give the next stretch on the other side for balance. And gently return back to neutral. Next, we're going to do some seated shoulder rolls. So this will involve just taking your shoulders and rolling them forward, up, and back. We're going to do 10 rounds of this. We're going to rotate the other way and bring the shoulders back and around to the front for a set of 10. We're going to come back to neutral. We're going to do a seated deltoid stretch. So we're on our inhale. We're going to bring our right arm up, and on our exhale, we're going to bring it across, gently supporting the stretch with our left hand. Take 6 rounds of breathing here. Bring our arms back to neutral. We're going to do our stretch on the left side for balance. Inhale. And on our exhale, we're going to bring the left arm towards the right. 6 rounds of breathing here. Come back to neutral. From here, we're going to come into a tabletop. In tabletop, you want to have your hips directly over your knees firmly planted into the mat. You want your hands planted in the mat with your shoulders directly over your wrist. So we're going to do a tabletop wrist stretch pose. So we're going to take the hands and we're going to turn them directly behind us. So you want your fingers pointing at your knees. We're going to breathe this out for a count of 6. We're going to release our wrist back into a neutral position, firmly planted under the shoulders. And we're going to do a cat-cow pose. So on your inhale, I want you to sink your navel towards the mat while you lift your head into our cow pose. And we're going to exhale. We're going to push our spine towards the ceiling into a cat nose pose. And we're going to sink our head towards the mat. We're going to inhale, cow. Exhale with our movement into cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. On our next inhale, cow, we're going to exhale into a downward dog pose. So for your downward dog, you want your hands and your feet firmly planted into the mat. You want your sits bones pushed into the air. You want your shoulder blades to be constricted in towards your spine. You can pedal your feet a little bit to create some space in the back of your legs while you walk your dog. We're going to take 3 nice deep breaths in our downward dog. So from here, we're going to gently push with our hands back into Tadasana or mountain pose. We're going to put our palms of our hands together, bring them to heart center. We're going to stand here and feel our bodies as we prepare for Sun Salutation A. So for Sun Salutation A, you'll want to come to the top of your mat, stand in Tadasana. We're going to inhale, reach up in the sky for volcano pose. Come down, hinge at the hips, come down into a forward fold. You can gently bend your knees in your forward fold. Your torso, bring towards your thighs. Put your hands on the mat. Straighten your legs, straighten your back into a half lift. We're going to come out into a plank. You can either come into Chaturanga from a full plank or you can drop the knees. We're going to come into a Cobra Pose for our back bend. We're going to plant our toes and we're going to come into Downward Dog. Push the sit bones back. Look in between your hands as you step back into a forward fold. going to come from our forward fold, reach to the sky, back into Tadasana. We're going to take 2 more rounds of this Sun Salutation A. So on your inhale, arms up, down into your forward fold, straighten up into half lift, come into plank, lower into chaturanga, push up into cobra, plant your feet, come into downward dog, push your sits bones to the sky, look in between your hands, step back into a forward fold, reach up to the sky in volcano, bring your hands back down into Tadasana. Round 3 of our Sun Salutation. Inhale, bring the arms up, swan dive down into your forward fold, hands on the mat, half lift, straighten the back and legs, step out into plank, lower down into chaturanga, push up into corpse pose, tuck your toes, into downward dog, walk your dog here, look in between your hands, step back to the front of the mat, into your forward fold, reach up into the sky for volcano, and back to Tadasana. That was Sun Salutation A. We're going to move on into Sun Salutation B. Which starts with Tadasana. We're going to come up into a chair. From chair, we're going to go into a forward fold. We're going to put the hands on the ground, into a half lift, straight back, straight legs. Step back into plank. Lower down into chaturanga. Come up into cobra. Plant the feet. Come into downward dog. Look in between your hands. Bring the left leg forward into warrior 1. Come back down into plank. Lower down into chaturanga. Press up into cobra. Back into downward dog. Look in between your hands. Bring the left leg into warrior 1. Back down into plank. Lower into chaturanga. Push up into cobra. Back into downward dog. Plant the hands and the feet. Push into downward dog. Look between your hands. Step up into a forward fold. Straighten your legs and your back into a half lift. Up into chair. And back into Tadasana. That was Sun Salutation B with your left leg forward. We're going to go to the other side of our mat. We're going to do it with our right foot forward to maintain balance. So we're going to start in Tadasana, shoulders back. We're going to come in chair. From chair, we're going to come into a forward fold. We're going to come from forward fold into half lift. Straighten the back, straighten the legs. We're going to come into plank. We're going to lower down into chaturanga. We're going to push up into cobra. We're going to tuck the toes. Come into downward dog. We're going to take the right. We're going to look in between the hands. Take the right foot. Bring it forward into warrior one. We go from warrior one back down to plank, lower into chaturanga, push up into cobra, back into downward dog, look in between your right hands, look in between your hands, bring your right leg up into warrior one. Palms facing each other, arms straight up in the air. Lower back down into plank. Lower down into chaturanga. Push up into cobra. Plant the feet. Back to downward dog. Walk back up towards the front of your mat, into forward fold. Straighten the legs, straighten the back into half lift. Come into chair. Straighten up into Tadasana, or mountain pose. So that was our sun salutation. A and B. And now we are going to do the hand to big toe pose. So you can plant your feet firmly on the mat. You can rest your hands on the ankles with your knees bent and ribs touching the thighs. Or you can grab the shins or the knees if you're having trouble getting all the way down to the toes. So we'll take a nice inhale. We'll hinge at the hips. And we're going to gently bring the hands touching the toes. We're going to take a few breaths here. If you want to deepen this stretch, we're going to take an inhale. Back up. We're going to reach down. And we're actually going to put the hands under the front of the feet. Take a few breaths here. If you have difficulty getting your hands all the way where you want, you can just modify by doing a forward fold and just getting your hands wherever you can get them. Take a few breaths here, a few more breaths. So from here, we're going to go in to a triangle pose stance. So you want to start with your feet wide, but you're going to take your left foot and point it towards the front of the mat, and you're going to keep your right foot parallel to the mat. So for Trichandasana or triangle pose, You're going to hinge at the hip. You're going to reach your left hand down towards the ankle. You can grab the ankle, grab the knee, put the hand touching the floor, or you can use a block for support as a modification. But you want your left hand towards the ground, and you want your right hand extended straight in the air. We're going to hold this for a few breaths. You can drishti or gaze at your extended hand into the air. And we're going to do a revolve triangle pose. We're going to come up and we're going to reach the other hand to the knee, to the ankle, to the foot, to the block. And we're going to extend the left arm up. And you can gaze or drishti at the left hand. Come out of that. We're going to take the same triangle or Trichandasana on the other side. So we're going to change feet. We're going to point the right foot towards the front of the mat this time. Keep the left foot planted and parallel. We're going to bring the right hand down, grab the ankle, touch the ground, grab your shin, whatever works for your body. We're going to extend the left arm up, and we're going to drishti or gaze towards the left hand. We're going to take a modification to triangle. We're going to do a revolve triangle. We're going to take the left hand and place it on the mat, the ankle, the block, and we're going to extend the right arm up and gaze towards the right hand into revolve triangle. Come out of that. And we're going to go from revolve triangle to an extended angle pose. So we're going to keep our stance, our feet in the same stance, but we're going to bend the right knee, and we're going to take the left foot and bring it in just a little bit at an angle. And we're going to do what's called an extended side angle. So with the right foot pointing towards the mat, right knee over the right ankle, we're going to put the right elbow on top of that knee, and we're going to take the left arm and we're going to extend into a straight line. You want energy flowing from the top of your left hand to the bottom of your left foot. And we're going to take a few breaths here. We're going to come down. We're going to transfer our feet to the other side. So we want the left foot facing the front of the mat and the right foot off to the upper right corner of the mat. You want your ankle directly over under the knee. You want that left elbow on the left knee, and you want the right hand straight in the air at an angle. So you want a straight line from the end of your leg to the top of your arm so that energy can flow into extended side angle. If it works in your practice, you can also put a hand on the ground or support a hand on the block as you sink deeper into the pose. Those are modifications. So to come out of extended side angle. We'll just come to a neutral position into Tadasana. And we're going to work next on the intense leg stretch poses. So for an intense leg stretch pose, we're going to come to a wide-legged stance. You can use your block for support. If it's in your practice, you can, when you forward fold, you can just let your head dangle down. Some people have it in their practice. Some bodies have it in their practice to be able to touch their head to the mat. Others don't. Do what works for your body. But we're just going to basically support, put our hands on the ground, support our bodies ever so gently with our arms while we let the head dangle and take some nice breaths. You can also use a block and bring your head down where it touches the block if you don't quite have it in your practice to get all the way to the floor. For the next part of our intense leg stretch pose, we're going to bring our hands to our waist while we forward fold. Take a few breaths here. And then we're going to clasp our hands behind our back and bring our hands as high towards the ceiling as our bodies will allow. For a nice stretch. Release. You can come back down. You can grab your ankles. Put your elbows towards your knees. And breathe into your forward fold here. Come on this. Just come up. Take a few breaths here. We're going to take the right foot towards the front of the mat, and leave the left foot parallel towards the back of the mat. And we're going to put the hands behind the back, and we're going to hinge at the hips. Into an intense side stretch pose. If you can get your nose all the way to the knee, that is in your body, you can do that as a modification. You just go down as far as you can so that you feel sensation. But we don't want pain. So we're going to come up and switch the legs. We're going to do that same intense side stretch pose on the left side. Bring your nose as close as you can to your left knee. Hold this for a few breaths. Feel the energy in your legs. Feel the breath leaving and entering your body. Come back up to a neutral position. So the next thing we're going to do is a standing hand to big toe pose forward bend. So this is something that some of you will need a strap and some of you will not. So you start in mountain pose and you plant a foot firmly on the ground. You bring the other foot as high in the air as possible, grabbing the toes. I have a hard time with that, so I use a strap, and you should do whatever works best for your body. If you use a strap, put it at the ball of your feet, because your feet are much stronger there than what they are in your arches. So bring the other foot as high in the air as possible, keeping both legs extended. And you want to take both hands to the knee, to the extended leg. Take a few breaths here. Release. Plant the other leg. Attempt to plant the right leg. Bring the left leg in the air. Bring it down. We're going to do a stretched sideboard pose. Again, if you have a hard time reaching your toes when you're on your feet, we're going to plant the left leg. We're going to take the right leg out to the right for a nice stretch. Hold it here for a few breaths. Bring it back down. We're going to plant the right foot. I'm going to bring the left foot up into a left leg side stretch pose. As you continue your practice, you'll find that the balance in these high leg poses will get better over time. So our next pose is a standing balance one-legged. So you'll want to plant your feet firmly. You want to inhale deeply. And on your exhale, you want to raise your right leg as far as you can. This is not about how high you raise the leg. It's simply engaging the muscles in the area as you hold the pose. When you're ready, you can release that leg. The same thing with the other side. You're going to plant one foot firmly, right foot firmly, and you're going to raise your left leg. And you're going to hold it. Take a few rounds of breathing here. And drop it when you're ready. So from here, we're going to do chair pose. So we're going to go in the chair. We're going to open up into Warrior One. We're going to extend into Warrior Two. We're going to go back into Warrior One. We're going to come back into chair. We're going to take it to the other side. We're going to go into chair pose. This time we're going to do the left knee forward in Warrior One. And extend it into Warrior Two. back into Warrior One. I'm going to go back into chair. We're going to come down to our mat, into staff pose. So in staff pose, you need to be seated firmly on your mat. Sits bones planted, feet extended, legs extended straight out in front of you, feet flexed. We want your kneecaps drawn in towards your torso so that your quadriceps are engaged, so that you feel the energy in your body. We're going to do a seated forward bend. So our seated forward bend, we're going to touch the toes, or as an option, you can hold the ankles. So in our forward bend, we're going to inhale. Touch the toes, hold the ankles. If you have it in your practice, you can reach around behind the feet and clasp the hands. You can modify this to whatever works for your body. Now to counter our forward bend, we're going to do an upward plank pose or a back bend. So for upward plank pose, you're going to keep your legs engaged. You're going to lean back slightly and put your hands on the floor, fingers facing the front of the mat. And we're going to take a nice inhale, and on your exhale, you're going to lift your hips and drop your head back towards your mat. Into upward plank pose. You're going to hold it here as long as you can. And bring it back down. And do it one more time. Nice inhale. Exhale. And back down. The next pose we're going to do is a half bound Lotus forward fold. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our left leg and we're going to extend it. We're going to take the right leg and bring it into a half lotus. So your foot should be on top of, your right foot should be on top of your left thigh. And we're going to come into a forward fold, bringing the left hand down towards the ankle, the left leg. We're going to bring the right hand around the back. And when we come into our forward fold, we're going to grab the right foot, if we can, to take a bind. Otherwise, we're just going to come as far as we can and keep reaching until we have that bind in our practice. And take a few breaths here. We're going to come out of that. We're going to try it on the other side. Sometimes each side of the body is very different from the other when it comes to a bind. So we're going to extend the right leg, bring the left foot in, sit it on top of the right thigh, reach over, grab the right ankle or right toes with your right hand, take the bind on the left side, and see if you can grab that right foot when you come into your forward fold. If you can't quite get it, just keep your arm back there. Take a few breaths here until you're ready to come out of the bind. So you'll straighten up, Bring everything back to neutral. So the next pose we're going to try, next pose we're going to do is a one-legged folded forward bend. So in this pose, you're going to take your right leg and bend it. Bend your knee, bring your right foot towards your hips. And you're simply just going to forward fold. Bring your nose as close to your knee as possible and grab your feet in this forward fold. We're going to take 6 rounds of breaths here. Come up. We're going to straighten the right leg. And we're going to bend the left leg. Bring that left foot back behind us. And we're going to do the forward bend. Hinge at the hips. Grab the ankles. The toes. Bring your nose as close as you can to the knee. Come out of this. Come back to a neutral position. And we're going to transition into a head to knee pose. So with this pose, we're going to come wide-legged on our mat. And we're going to extend the left leg out to the side. We're going to bend the right leg and bring that right foot just inside the groin on the left thigh. We're going to take our nose towards our knee and reach towards the ankle or the toes on the left side of the body. Keep your feet flexed. Keep your leg engaged. Breathe through a nice stretch on the left side. Come out. Back to neutral. Extend the right leg out to the side. Bend the left leg. Bring that left foot into the inside of the right leg. We're going to do the same thing, head to knee pose. So we're going to reach towards the ankle, bring the head or the nose as close as you can to the knee. Do whatever works for your body. You want sensation. You don't want to push it too far. We're avoiding injury. And breathe it out here for about 6 rounds. Back out of it. So now we're going to do a sage twist pose. So from a neutral staff pose, you want both legs extended. You want your sits bones firmly planted. You're going to take your left knee and bend it. From a neutral pose, we'll start with the bending of the left leg at the knee and reach for the right knee with the forehead, or whichever stretch works for your body. Awareness of the stretch at the various muscles with breathing brings a better healing of the much needed muscles. Remain here for about 4 breaths and feel the stretch of the back of the right knee and the left hip, thus giving room for the opening of the knee joint. You can use a cushion or a blanket to sit on to give support for the hip and the knee, thus making the pose less intense and yet get the same stretch. So if you're using it without a blanket, we're going to reach for the right knee while trying to bring the left arms so if you have enough of a forward fold to get over and bring the hands around you and extend the arms straight back in a full extension, that's what this pose looks like. I don't have that much of a forward fold, so this is what mine looks like. All right, so we're going to do the same thing on the other side, a sage twist pose. We're going to extend the left leg, bring the right knee in, come over as far as you can on your left side. Both sides are different. Bring your arms behind you and stretch out as far as you can. If you have it in your practice, you can tuck this knee in and include that along with your stretch. Release. We're going to do the Mariachi Pose next. So with this pose, you're going to start in your staff. You're going to pull your left knee in and you're going to twist towards your left knee, bringing your elbow around it, and you're going to take your left hand around your back and you're going to drishti or gaze towards the back. We're going to take about 6 rounds of breathing here. Release. I'm going to bring the left knee down, bring the right knee up in the Mariachi Pose. And we are going to twist around to the bent leg, bring the hand around the back, sit up tall, and we're going to breathe it out here for about a round of 6 breaths. Release. If you have boat pose in your practice, you can do a full boat pose or you can do a half boat pose, whatever works for your body. I'm going to demonstrate a half boat pose and we'll take it to full if I have it in my body today. So for boat pose, you want to rest on your sits bones. You want them firmly planted. You want your legs extended but with your feet on the ground for half boat pose. We're going to take our arms and extend them out in front of us, and we're going to lift our legs and balance on our hips. To come into full boat pose, you simply extend your legs and see if you can maintain your balance. Sometimes, if you have a little assistance, you can keep your balance with your legs extended better. But this is what half boat pose looks like. Full boat pose, you just have your legs extended. So our next pose, if you have wheel pose in your practice and you can do it from the ground or without prop assistance, we can do wheel pose with or without a prop. So if you do wheel pose without a prop, you're going to lay on your mat. You'll plant your hands and your feet, similar to what you do in bridge pose. And you'll take a nice deep inhale and visualize this. You'll inhale, and then when you exhale, you'll push up your hips and come into wheel pose with a full extension. Some people do it, they'll push up and rest on the crown of their head, and then they'll take another inhale, and on their next inhale, they'll push up into a full wheel pose. For those of us that don't have a wheel pose in our practice without prop assist, I'm going to demonstrate how to do it with a yoga ball. So for wheel pose with a yoga ball, you'll basically get your yoga ball set up on one side of your mat, and you'll ever so gently roll back into wheel. Using the ball to support your back so that you can get the sensation of the back bend and get your muscles used to what it feels like in wheel. And you can push up and start building strength with your ball for assistance until you get to a point where you can do it on your own. When you're ready, come out of wheel. Put your prop away. So that was wheel. Now we're going to do a seated forward bend pose to counterbalance our back bend. So we will start in staff. We're going to inhale. Bring the arms directly overhead. Exhale, hinge at the hips. Come forward, touch our toes. And breathe this out for a round of 6 breaths. Release. We're going to come into shoulder stand next. So to come into shoulder stand, you want to be very careful when you're in a shoulder stand to never bend your neck or your head. You want your line straight from your head to your neck. Your shoulders will be supporting your body, so you want to keep your neck and head straight in line with your shoulders. So to come into shoulder stand, you're going to firmly plant your shoulders into the mat. You're going to start with your arms down, palms facing down to help you push into the pose. And you're going to bring your legs and your hips up over your shoulders. You can use your hands for support as you bring your legs straight in the air for shoulder stand. We're going to come out of shoulder stand. We're going to scoot a little bit further down because we're going to need some room for our legs over our head for the next pose, which is Plow Pose. So we're going to start in shoulder stand. And we're going to do some stretches to prepare our body for plow. We're going to take one leg, touch the mat, bring it back up, take the other leg, back up. We're going to take both legs gently and controlled into Plow Pose. We're going to bend the legs, and we're going to take a Lotus pose or an easy seat while we're in shoulder pose. Take a few breaths here. Camel shoulder pose. And there is one more variation we're going to do is ear pressure pose. So we're going to come into shoulder pose and we're going to bring our knees down by our ears. Again, do not bend your head, bend your neck, or turn your head. So we're in shoulder pose. Prepare for the stretch. One foot down, other foot down. Take our knees and bring them down to our ears. If you don't go all the way, it's fine. Just do what works for your body. A few more breaths. Gently relax your back and roll it up. So those were our various shoulder stands. The next thing we're going to do is a fish pose variation with bound ankles. So we're going to bring the ankles in with feet together, kind of like butterfly. And we're going to lean back on the elbows for support. Now I'm using a bolster for extra support in my neck because we're going to go into a heart opener by leaning our head back very gently until the crown touches the mat. You can use your elbows for support, or you can use a bolster. But we're opening the throat chakra. We're going to take 6 rounds of breathing here. Come up out of fish pose. Remove the bolster. Next thing we're going to do is a raised legs pose. So we're going to place the hands under the glutes or leave the feet on the floor and raise the arms. We're going to gaze at the nose. So with this one, you want to tuck your shoulders a little bit under because you are going to pull your head back as you raise your arms and your legs. And you want to stare at your nose. Drishti, or gaze at your nose. Breathe through this for a few breaths. And then release the pose when you're ready. Okay. So the next pose we're going to do is a half headstand pose on the forearms. So for this pose, I would recommend that you get extra support for the crown of your head, because what we're going to do is we're going to come up to a wall and we are going to prepare for our half headstand. And what you'll want to do, if you want extra support for your head, is to place a blanket up against the wall. To prepare for this pose, you want to get your arms set up right for the forearm support part of it. So you start by grabbing your elbows at each end. You're going to place them on the ground, and once you get them placed on the ground, you're going to fold your hands together. And this is going to be the cradle of where you put your head at when you come into your half headstand. So I'm grabbing my elbows, placing them on the blanket, grabbing my hands, placing the crown of my head into where my hands are cupped at. I'm going to gently bring the hips over my shoulders while supporting my body. If you have a full headstand in your practice, you can bring your headstand completely up. To where your legs are fully into the air. Or you can do the half headstand, which is what I'm doing. When you're ready, come out of that pose. We're going to come into child's pose. Sit back on your heels, hips over heels. You can have your legs wide, or you can have them hip width apart, whatever's more comfortable in your body. You're going to bring your forehead down to the mat very gently. You can either bring your hands behind you with the palms facing up, or you can extend them overhead with the palms facing down. We're going to stay here for about a minute and focus on our breath. You should be breathing in deeply through your nose and exhaling fully through your nose, letting go of anything that doesn't serve you. You can gently come up out of child pose into easy seat. And we are going to work on the psychic union pose variation. So you can sit in Lotus or in easy pose, whatever works best for your body. Let's see how to do with Lotus. Some days are better than others. So I'm going to walk you through it before we actually do the pose. You're going to close your eyes and you're going to relax the whole body. You're going to take your arms behind your back and clasp the big toes of the opposite foot. You're going to bring awareness to the root chakra and hold the bandha by contracting the pelvic floor muscles. You're going to retain breath for a few seconds and bring your awareness to the third eye. From Lotus pose, exhale and bend forward and bring the forehead or chin to touch the floor. Breathe comfortably as long as you can hold the posture, and then hold the breath outside for a few seconds, concentrating on the root chakra. Now, if this pose doesn't work for your body, the option is a Lotus pose chin mudra with a Jalandhara bandha. So we would sit in a half lotus, or just cross-legged in an easy seat, and use a block or a blanket to elevate the hips, we would just gaze down at the nose. So I'm going to demonstrate the Psychic Union Pose variation to the best of my ability. But note, this is not something I've mastered. So mine will likely not look the same as yours. But I am going to attempt to come into a better lotus. All right. So this is all I have. So I'm just going to reach as far as I can. So you're going to close your eyes, relax the whole body, take your arms behind your back, and clasp the big toes of the opposite foot. Yeah. So I don't have that. But if I were clasping my toes, I would focus on my third eye chakra, and then I would slowly bend over and bring my forehead to the mat and practice 3 slow, deep breaths. 3 rounds of breathing. Come back up. If that pose is not in your body, then the offering for the variation pose is the Lotus Pose Chin Mudra. So we're going to sit supported. You can either do easy pose or attempt to get into a full lotus or half lotus. You'll bring the backs of your hands to your knees, thumbs and index fingers connected. We're going to bring the chin down. And we're going to gaze at the nose while we take slow, deep breaths. And on your last exhale, we're going to come into a neutral position before we move into corpse pose. So in corpse pose, if you want to have a blanket, support your head. Move the mat back around. Doing our half headstand. So for corpse pose, you'll lay in Shavasana. If it's comfortable in your body, you can add a blanket so that you cool down a little more slow. So you don't cool down as quickly. You're going to relax your legs. Let your feet flop to the sides. You can rest your arms, one arm on the heart, one arm on the abdomen, or you can simply just lay them to the sides, palms facing up, completely relaxed. We're going to take 5 minutes in Savasana to let our practice soak into our body. If you have an eye pillow handy, you can put an eye pillow over your eyes in addition to closing them. And relax the muscles in your jaw. Relax the muscles in your face. And just focus on your breath. To come out of Shavasana, you can gently move your toes, gently move your fingers. You can rock your head side to side, get some movement going there. You can roll over onto your left side. Give your heart some rest. Stay here for a few seconds before you push up into whatever seated pose is most comfortable in your body. Think back to the beginning of class and your intention. Your physical body was supported by strengthening and stretching all the muscle groups with a bit more energy directed towards the lower back and gluteus muscles. We practiced various Ashtanga poses that promoted healing throughout the subtle and physical body. With awareness of your energy and your experiences, you get more connection. Namaste is about creating and honoring connection and respect. It means that the divine in me sees and honors the divine in you. We'll take an inhale, bring our hands overhead, palms together, bring them down to heart center. Namaste with a nice bow. Namaste. Be well.